Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Andy, William.
How you
Thanks for
doing?
being here. Doing all right. Doing all right.
Good.
Jay is here as well.
Hey yo.
Tim, welcome.
Hello
We'll get
there.
started in just a few minutes.
I'm here today just because I don't have a Zoom.
Something hold it.
Oh,
Well, for today, a few things on the agenda is to review any DELA developments, if we've heard or seen any updates. So DELA. Jay is going to review the situation with Edgar, who was at our last month's meeting, the landowner in the outskirts of El Paso. And then we're going to hand over the floor to Armando, who's joining us today, to talk about his situation in his community. He's a landowner in the outskirts of El Paso, the Montana Vista area. And we're inviting him on to talk about the situation going on in his community. Very similar themes of what we've been discussing for months here in the Easement Action Alliance. So we'll discuss that and go into a the concept of a virtual town hall to our continue our efforts to get some statewide policy ideas passed, to get some policy solutions at a state level. And with that, we'll end with a training from Emma from Bold on tips on reaching out to our elected officials and maintaining those relationships. So, um, with that, since Armando here is joining us, I think we can do a really quick go around in the call, just introducing yourself. What part of the state are you at? Are you calling from? And one reason why you are interested in improving property right property rights in for landowners. So name, where you're calling from, why landowner property rights are important to you. We can go around the room to start that way. Um, yeah. Um, Armando, I guess if you want to kick us off, introduce yourself and why property rights are important to you as a landowner.
okay. Yes, Armando Rodriguez. I'm out here in El Paso, Texas. For those of you that don't know, property rights are important to me really because uh, it's a right that I have as a citizen of this country. You know, I own a piece of land, and I think that I have the right to to live on my property without fear of getting thrown out or having somebody come in and destroy, the environment around my property. It is my home. It is something that I consider to be generational wealth that I can move forward, to my family, as when my days are over. And I think that's why it's important. And I think other people, if one fights for his property rights, other people hopefully start to understand that it is important for them to do the same as well. You want to
Awesome.
get into this?
Thanks for joining us, Armando. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Andy, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Andy Bland, and I live in Central Texas in Robertson County, and we have multiple pipelines that are already across our property, and I would like to find out better about how to stop that so that there's not more.
Awesome. I guess Allison, do you want to go next? Thanks for joining us, Allison.
Hmm. Yes, sure. So I'm Allison Kester. We have property in Coleman County, and I think property rights are very, very important, especially to those of us in areas that are getting covered up by data centers and that reside and have our land between major oil and gas regions and major metropolitan regions. The compensation for the damage that is done is insufficient for property owners. And I think it's a big uphill battle here in Texas where oil and might is right for us to speak up, but I think we've got to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for voicing that. It is an uphill battle, but it's worth it. What we're defending is very much worth it. How about you, Howard? Would you like to go next?
Yeah, the property rights I'm worried about is the eminent domain and the government overreach, especially on this project. It's not for the good of the public.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What part of the state are you calling from?
Ballinger.
Ballinger. Yeah. No, yeah, the eminent domain, right, is supposed to be this concept that's only used for public use that benefits all of the public. And these corporations are taking advantage of it, huh? They're taking advantage of it, saying projects like DeLa that only help and support investors are for the public use, and that's not right. So
No, it's not right.
yeah, and that's part of our efforts here at the of this group to address the issue where the root of the problem is, which is our state government laws that are not up to speed. They're not at where they should be, and they have all these loopholes that allow these corporations to take advantage of the situation. William, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm located in Central Texas. Um, the reason I joined y'all is because I have property in Mills County that in the DeLa Express route. What I don't like about it, there's a pipeline that already goes through the property. It's been there over 100 years, and I feel like you get one pipeline in there and you're on the bullseye to get more pipelines, and I don't think that's necessarily fair, and I don't think that it's right that they can be able to um, cross your property. Let's say they're going to compensate you for it, but I prefer they not even be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, that once they start the quote unquote pipeline corridor, right? It's very difficult to stop it's like snowball becomes an avalanche and these companies just feed off of that. It goes towards the yeah, no, it's important for us to have the protections in place so that that doesn't happen. I guess Emma and Tim, if you want to introduce yourself to Armando.
Sure. I'm Emma Schmit from Bold Alliance. I actually live in Iowa, but help fight projects like these from all across the country, mostly because I'm so sick of these corporations bullying people. And that's what they do, right? Is they just bully and use scare tactics to get people to sign over their property. And I just think it's wrong.
Absolutely. And we've got a lot to learn from other states. Emma can connect the dots for us, compare what's happening here with what's happening in different parts of the country. Tim, do you want to?
Sure. My name's Tim Pearson. I am a lawyer based out of Fredericksburg in Gillespie County, and we represent landowners in eminent domain matters, fighting against kind of the right to take if it's not there, trying to make sure that landowners are justly compensated, and then also have a family ranch in Llano County. And so my concern with property rights is that land is a unique resource. You can't replicate it. They're not making more of it. So when it's taken or misused, that's a very sad thing that happens all too frequently. So we take our representation of landowners very seriously.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, Tim. And yeah, that's right. You can't just we can't just produce more land, huh? That's not how it works. That's a very important point. Got to take care of it. Jay, if you want to move on to the next item here, give us an update about Edgar from the last meeting.
Yeah, so I'm sure some of you were on last month when we had Edgar on the call. He is a farmer in Socorro, Texas, which is in the rural area, just east of El Paso. And his community, there was about 200 folks who were going to be displaced because of a freeway expansion. They wanted to connect I-10 basically to the border. So they got organized. They started having community meetings. They got city council involved. So city council is now looking into that project and everything is on hold. So I think that's to offer a little bit of hope, like through organizing and the strength of numbers and everybody moving in the same direction, you can definitely accomplish things at the local levels and eventually the state level. And then trying to get over to Armando, he's facing a similar issue that Edgar was on the opposite side of town, also in a rural area of El Paso. So I will pass it to him and he'll get into that real quick. Yeah, take it away, Armando.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you all. Welcome. A little bit about myself. I'm Armando. I live in this rural community outside the city of El Paso. The city limits is called Montana Vista. It's a community that is underrepresented politically. It's marginalized, low economic levels. And it's predominantly Hispanic. I'd say 98% Hispanic community. And it's been out there for a while. We don't have a lot of the services that the city folks have, and I'm sure that those of you that live in rural communities can relate to that. What I like to bring up is my issue here is with a transmission line that is going to be they're attempting, they being a company named Grid United out of Houston, Texas, and this other company called Pecos West. What they're trying to do is they're trying to connect the western grid with the eastern grid, right? And so they want to run this transmission line, through my community, utilizing a project called Pecos West. That is the name of this project. It is a high voltage direct current HVDC transmission line. And so this is based on what I've been able to research. This is not only a multi-million-dollar operation. This is a multi-billion-dollar grid reliability investment in the desert Southwest. So it's a huge project. Now, somebody said it just now that it makes her mad that people just come into your community and start bullying people around and want to take the land on the cheap. And that's exactly what they're trying to do to us out here. They're trying to put in something that's called a single 130-foot high pole. Those are the metal structures that are going to run right through my community and carry all this electricity. We have had a tremendous amount of problems trying to get transparency from these people. By transparency, I mean, how many routes do you have? Where are you going to be running this transmission line through? So that people in the community become aware of that and they're able to prepare themselves for what's coming, so they can ask questions, they can retain legal representation, They can speak to, folks like, real estate agents in the event that they do want to sell their properties and so forth. They have not defined a particular amount of money that people would get for their properties. I have spoken with several individuals. They're as low as 50,000 to as high as 350,000 for very similar pieces of property. So there's that whole how are they arriving at those conclusions, right? Um, the political environment here in El Paso, for those of you that don't know, Texas is a pro-business state. El Paso is salivating at the bit to get these kinds of businesses in our community because they're trying to offset the 30/70 tax rates. In other words, businesses in El Paso are paying 30% of the tax, revenue, and residents are paying 70. So they're trying to flip that. There's some logic to that, but it's how you go about doing that. That's been the concern for me and many other people, right? Many of these big companies out of town, and a lot of them are from out of town, are getting a lot of tax breaks and so forth. The classic stuff that they do, that a government does to bring these folks in here. We don't have any ordinances out there, so it's very difficult for us to fight these folks because you can't identify a residential property versus a commercial property. It's all the same, just a piece of land that somebody wants. So that becomes real difficult for us. Now, I have had several meetings with Grid United people and Pecos West, representatives to try and discuss, getting these issues that I just discussed about transparency, routes, compensation, issues of hazard. These transmission lines, based on some research, produces high levels of electromagnetic energy, which can be harmful to people living underneath or next to these transmission lines. There is one particular transmission route that has a current easement where they have a 12-inch gasoline pipe buried in the ground, and that route that they're trying to use, this transmission line would be parallel to that gas line. So that in itself can become a very explosive, issue. They don't seem to have a whole lot of concerns about that, right? So what I'm trying to do and have done is met with these people, try to get them to be more transparent with why they're doing what they're doing, how they're going to do it, and how the people in this community are going to be impacted, right? So what I've been trying to do is I've been canvassing the community on my own to try and put the word out that this thing is coming and it's coming very quickly. I have been able to speak with several community residents, and they've told me that several of these properties have been sold. So I kind of feel that we're behind the eight ball on that at this point. It's very difficult to understand how many properties are being sold or being purchased because we don't know what the routes are. So there's a lot of lack of transparency here, a lot of concern, sense of helplessness because you're basically doing this on your own. Our political representation out there is not very good, doesn't seem to have an interest in it. Again, because there's money in bringing, big business into the community. So that's kind of what we're up against. I've been living on my land 24 years. I have a music studio on my property and I have 3 acres of land and a lot of the plans that I had for what I wanted to convert that property to have basically been put on hold. I wanted to create an artist colony and do all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of on hold for now. Where it goes, I don't know. The fight continues, and I think it's important. This particular meeting, and I'm glad that that I was invited because I think that us together, we need to push for, getting involved in trying to create some policy reforms, with our local leaders, and so that this reaches across the state, and so that we are all fighting the same fight and hopefully talking the same language, because I think that there's strength in commonality. So that's pretty much what I'm up against. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Armando, for sharing that. I'm sure um, some of the themes that Armando was talking about can resonate with some of you all. I mean, it's the same story, just in a different font, like these private companies coming into town, wanting to buy out land, threatening to use eminent domain. And we are in many, many ways, including with DeLa, um, on our just caught off guard. We're caught off guard because we don't have enough protections. So, um, Armando was mentioning the transmission line, and I mean, it's you can replace transmission line with the DeLa Express Pipeline, and it's a very similar situation. I did want to open up the floor. Is there anything that resonated from what Armando was mentioning related to what we're going through with the DeLa pipeline and other the many pipelines that are being proposed or already in your property? Anything that specifically resonated? Anything you thought was different?
I'm still stuck on the music studio part. I just think that's super cool.
We definitely need more arts. They bring communities and divergent points of view together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what's at stake, huh? With when these companies come into town and try to impose their will, what our plans for the land are put on hold. And that's not right. That's not right. Any other questions, any other thoughts?
So we've had here in Coleman County in the northern half, there's been a large, really tall um, pipeline, high voltage pipeline, not pipeline, electrical line that is supposedly going to be going through the northern county. And Coleman County Commissioners Court was approached. They issued an official letter opposed to the route. And then other counties adjacent to us all along did the same. So the landowners went to their county commissioners, met with them face to face, and enough landowners that were impacted were able to get the county commissioners to issue reports. A letter in opposition. I don't know if it'll make any difference in the long term, but I think that's really important. And a lot of the demands here for these high tension lines are for power for data centers. They go into municipalities and they promise jobs, but data centers only provide a lot of construction jobs that tend to be very temporary. They tend to result in a lot of temporary housing and RV parks that are just thrown up. And then when the construction's done, the jobs go away and the city is only left with not so many jobs and not so much that really helps the economy long term. So I think a lot of them get sold on the short term gain of all these construction workers, but that goes away. And while they're there, it drives up the cost of hotels, which makes it really hard for other types of community events to happen, like weddings and having rooms for people to stay. So I think the whole story need the local leadership and government needs to really be educated, um, and get the stars that are out of their eyes and realize what's really meant by these projects. Because in the end of the day, the solar panel farms, the data centers, and all of that are, I think, what's driving this massive demand for right-of-way easements that impact our landowner rights. And we've got to speak up.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And well, that's one reason why we think Grid United is they're trying to get access to Armando's land to begin with. That's why we think that's happening. So the founder of Grid United, his name's John Arnold, the youngest billionaire in America, is on the board of Meta. And Meta's trying to build a massive 1 gigawatt data center in El Paso. So we think it's connected. Like you said, Allison, it's related, right? These data centers massively increasing the demand of electricity, which means more transmission lines, more impacting landowners like yourself.
But I think Meta was just recently in the news that they were going to manage their own power needs, like within the last week or two. Has anybody else seen that?
I have not. How do you interpret that? What does that mean?
Well, then if they're going to meet their own power needs, they don't need to be having a bunch of high voltage transmission lines being built. So
Yeah.
I think that was in my news feed within the last 2 weeks, and it kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
I'll try to look for the article, Jay, and if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I mean that leads to another question I wanted to ask the group. How have you all seen this phenomenon impact your county where you're at, the increased demand for data centers and increased demand for transmission lines? Have you all seen that uh, in your area?
The line going through northern Coleman County and Comanche County, Brown County is, I've heard two things. I've heard it's tied to the data centers that are going in Abilene. A huge one's already under construction and a second one's going to start. But I've also heard that there's a piece of legislation that is mandating that all the pump jacks be converted from diesel powered to electrical power, and that in the case of this line in northern Coleman County, the electricity is going from metropolitan areas back into Midland to support this demand that they start using electricity on the pumping rigs.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that. I had heard of the massive Abilene data center. I think it's one of the biggest in the country.
There's a second one that's, I think, already been approved. I have
Mm.
a full-time day job and I ranch, so I hear things and I read things, but I don't necessarily have the time or bandwidth to chase it all to the ground.
No, yeah, that's why we have to do this together as an organization because we all have a piece of the puzzle that we can try to put together. Andy, you went off mute?
Yes, so in an adjacent county from where I live, but it's where you go to work and shop and everything, Brazos County, there was a data center that was trying to come in. It was actually within the city limits, and enough folks went to the city council and uh, complained about it, about how they didn't want it for power reasons, for aesthetic, for noise, etc. And so and since the city owned the property, they elected not to, sell it or allow the data center to build there. So I don't remember what the county was, but so basically the county the project just picked up and is now proposing one or two counties over. So they're shopping to find out where they can go in.
Andy, you said this was in Brazos County?
Brazos County was actually within the city limits of College Station.
Okay. Okay. Well, hey, it shows how when there's organization and when there's community resistance and opposition, they that moves these companies, huh?
Yeah. So the city actually owned the parcels of land, the acreage that was proposed to be used.
Right.
And instead of, cutting a tax deal and whatever, for the data center, the citizens did not want it to happen. And so the city went back to the drawing board on other things. And now they're proposing looking at it, using it as a park and trailway and other stuff like
Yeah.
that. So which would you rather have?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean that case study also demonstrates another important dynamic is that these companies are shopping around in different counties.
Yeah. And
And yeah,
and they said that and I don't know the answer, but they said the same thing. The data center company, the representatives, when they came to meet, that they were, I don't remember how they termed it, but they were going to bring their own power. In other words, they weren't going to rely on the power from basically the city of College Station has their own power utility company. So I don't know if that means, hence, transmission lines across some property to get the power from, external to the local, the more local power provider. I don't know, but that it's kind of misleading. Yeah, and it's not going to affect your power consumption or your power rates. Yeah, I don't know if I really believe that.
I just linked an article saying that Meta was signed a 20-year deal to revive a nuclear power plant up in Chicago, or near Chicago, which isn't maybe super relevant to us, but they're also building gas power plants in Louisiana. So if these power generation locations are not co-located with the data centers themselves, there will be the need for more transfer lines. But if they're going to build their own little nuclear reactors next to their data centers, that's good, I guess. But those nuclear reactors are very expensive and take a long time to get approved. So in the meantime, they're relying on more traditional fossil fuels and existing generation.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the case here in the data center they want to build, the Meta data center they want to build in El Paso. They want to build a whole new gas plant to power just this one project, risking impacts on utility bills, let alone the increase in contamination and air pollution. So, I mean, yeah, I think we're seeing a theme here of data centers impacting rural parts of the state as well. Going back to that case study, Andy, where you mentioned the company wanting to build in College Station, they're just going 2 counties over. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one, two, it could be three. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but I read in the news that now there was one of our neighboring counties. The residents there were not happy that there was a proposed data center that was being, talked to the city council.
Right. Yep. And I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but that's the need for our statewide plan, right? Because these companies are trying to pit counties against each other. And I mean, ultimately, the solution that we need will have to be a statewide plan. And so I next want to move on to a review of our legislative ideas, something we can continue to add on to. I think we can include more discussion on data center policies. But before that, is there any other discussion here on this item about the transmission line situation with Armando and the data centers? Suzanne, you mentioned here San Marcos rejecting the data center. Any other thoughts on this thread?
I think any sort of like social media boosting awareness of when data centers are trying to park themselves in certain counties, just like get the word out so that the citizens like saying, hey, we just, we're fighting a data center. Our county just rejected it. Call up, be aware they might be coming to you next because you're right next door to us. And then if we could just get more and more people to just, just spread the word so that they know to go and, stand at the podium and say, we don't want this, reject it. It's not going to be good for our community. I think any sort of like Facebook groups, if anyone's still on Twitter, or heck, even Instagram, but I'm not even sure I know how to run Instagram. Unfortunately, social media is full of so much misinformation, but we can still get some word out there if we put out mass emails or posts that get attention, or any local politicians who are it's a campaign year. So if we can find some people to boost that, maybe get some talks with some campaigns, that would be a good idea. Get them talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that requires this pretty extensive network right across the state where we can communicate with each other, inform each other's strategies. Um, Armando, you had your hand up, and then Emma.
Going back to the transmission line and the relationship between that and the data centers, it is my sense, my feel, based on what I see, what I hear, that these data centers here in El Paso, especially Meta, let's talk about Meta. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that you would want to spend a couple $100 million to build a power generating plant next to Meta when you could just plug into a transmission line, right? So I think part of the problem that is happening here, I think that they're deliberately trying to disguise this under this idea that, oh, this is what we're going to do. But what they really want to do is these transmission lines. The Grid United wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case, right? They got stopped by the PUC for a couple of years, so I guess they're buying some time, right? And so I kind of get that sense, that that's kind of what they're doing. That why would you get a generator next to your place when you could plug it into the socket on the wall, right? And also, something I forgot to mention earlier, the El Paso Electric Company is running another transmission line through my community, and we're going to be having a community meeting tomorrow with them. So there's two of them now. So it makes you wonder why so much energy, and data centers feed off transmission lines. So I think that this is just a way for them to say, well, we're building this power transmission line over here. Don't worry about it. Don't look at what the guy's doing out there with their transmission lines. And once they get them built, they could always dump those power generating, facilities, sell them, turn them into something else. So I think that's all part of what's going on here.
Right. Emma, you had your hand up too?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of build off of what was said earlier about going to these communities that maybe aren't being threatened right this minute but could be. One of the things that worked really well for us in Iowa, so in our case it was the county supervisors that kind of had approval authority, but this case it sounds more like city council. But we had an allied county supervisor that kind of became the spokesperson, and he was the one that would reach out to all of his colleagues in other counties and even develop like a checklist of 10 things you need to do, or that you can do to protect your community from this project ahead of before it comes to you, essentially. And it was really powerful. And I mean, he helped pass ordinances in over a dozen counties and things like that. And so, I mean, I think obviously like the citizen pressure worked well too, but like they don't, most elected officials are going to listen or regard their colleague, somebody else in the same position, a little bit more highly than just like the everyday person, unfortunately. So he was a really good person to have on our side, and I think if we can make some sort of like connection like that in Texas, it could be something very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a good segue to our next section um, of a proposal that we want to talk about for our next big action as the Texas Easement Action Alliance. So we know we need some sort of statewide plan. We know we have some legislative ideas about how to ensure we protect landowner rights. And we know we need to begin the process of connecting with with state representatives. Even if it even if we don't pass a law the next legislative session, January 2027, we can begin the process of having this block of state representatives that care about what we care about. So with that, I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Let's see. Are you all able to see this poster here? This is what we're proposing. A virtual town hall organized by us where we have featured speakers, state representatives from different parts of the state to participate in this town hall. We would call it Protecting Landowner Rights Virtual Town Hall, organized by Texas Easement Action Alliance, where we get allied representatives to participate in this discussion with our organization and our members. And so these would be the three objectives of the virtual town hall. Number one, we could learn from these ally state representatives what are ongoing legislative efforts regarding property rights and eminent domain reform. I'm really interested in learning what has been attempted in the past. What have their colleagues attempted regarding eminent domain reform? What has worked, what hasn't? So that's the first objective, us learning about what has happened. Second, establishing relationships with these ally state representatives. Who can we call in the House of Representatives or senators or the Senate when we want to present our legislative ideas? We should begin that process of having our block of allies and asking representatives to participate in a town hall that we organize can be a good sign, a good structure test of us, of seeing how much they're interested in helping us on this issue. Thirdly, this could be really important to make legitimate our legislative ideas, right? We have a series of policy ideas of legislative reform. We have some ideas. Here's a summary of everything we've talked about in the past few months. Well, these are only ideas on paper. How can we make them real legislative possibilities? Beginning the relationship with our elected officials. So this is the plan. I want to spend the next few minutes brainstorming what we think about this plan. What you all think could be the pros, the cons, and potentially looking at some next steps about our contacting our elected officials. So I want to spend the next few minutes discussing this idea. What do we think? Cannon, yeah, go for it. You
Yeah,
got your hand.
so I just linked in the chat a link from texasgop.org with that was posted December 2025. Um, it's a resolution urging reform of eminent domain law in Texas and includes things that say things like prohibit the use of eminent domain for any projects primarily driven by economic development purposes, speculative population or tax growth, real estate or commercial development, and public-private partnerships that provide private economic returns. So basically, it's saying exclude. Let's see. Yeah, they want to change from the references to public use to public necessity. Prohibit the delegation of eminent domain authority to private companies, unelected boards, or entities that stand to profit from the land acquisition. So basically, and this is on the GOP website, which surprised the heck out of me. But I mean, this could be what they have here. Sounds like a lot of very reasonable things to include. I'm going to go peek at it, see if the Democrats have anything to say about this. But yeah, this is a really good link, and I think there's a lot of good
Absolutely.
things we could model.
Yeah, this is a great find, Cannon. That's awesome. And so this is part of their just statewide party resolution, huh? I think this is really
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, like if it says Republican Party of Texas, but I don't know who these like. This could be the official like the party of Texas, or it could be like a group because
Mhm.
it's a org, not a gov. So this could be an activist group that just calls itself that, but I should probably take a peek at and see what they're about too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Allison, you mentioned something in the chat there. Would you like to voice that?
Yeah, I love the idea of starting with allies that are already aligned with landowner rights, but to really have impact, we're gonna have to use that to educate ourselves so that then we can have either roundtable discussions and webinars, but to educate us to the level that I can go in to my representative, whose name is PFLINGR or something like that. He represents Coleman County at the state level, but he's also a big friendly to oil and gas. And i- if we can figure out talking points and ways to articulate and get the Republicans are about landowner rights and agency. And so let's let's educate ourselves up so we can be articulate when we go in and we talk to them. I love Emma's photo, uh, no eminent domain for private gain. I think that is so crucial. DeLa Express should never be have been an eminent domain type of project because its sole purpose was to extract resources from Texas, ship them across Texas and Louisiana, and put them on boats and send them overseas. That is not for public good. That is purely for profit. And the only entities that benefit from that are shareholders who happen to own those companies involved. And we never really even know who they are because they're part of multiple LLCs whose ownership and ties are really hidden. That's not okay. And I think regardless of the side of the aisle somebody's on, that has to be addressed. What truly is eminent domain? And having conversations around that, I think make us all stronger.
So to add, I agree to that, and to add to it, there's another pipeline that's trying to come through our property. It's Targa. I think it's Grand Prix by Targa, but it's the same thing. If you go to their website and read about them, it's to take oil or get in this case gas from the Permian Basin, ship it across Texas, and even down into Louisiana to put on ships to send elsewhere. I agree. Why is that public? For the benefit of the public. From what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've spent some time on I guess the Texas Railroad Commission site, and I think there's another site. And when a company applies, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like when they apply for eminent domain, it's basically a checkbox on a form, and I don't remember the form number. And even the Railroad Commission site says, they're not the ones to determine if it is or not. It's the company determines whether it's for they can be granted eminent domain because it's for public use. So there's no governing entity that looks at that.
Yeah, that's just a dysfunctional system. That's just completely wrong. So, yeah, I mean, we've got to start somewhere. I think there's a lot of bipartisan energy around this. Cannon just found that up on the Republican resolution. So yeah, we think this town hall can be a great way to channel this energy into a tangible moment. So yeah, what do we think? Any other thoughts on this? Do we thumbs up if we like the idea?
I
We
like it.
moving forward with it? Yeah. Cannon, you've got your hand up.
Yes. So when I went to go vote last week, they handed me this little flyer for the Democratic Party convention notice, and I assume the Republicans are doing something as well. It seems to be like a precinct, so I think they're more localized. But apparently, you can sign up or show up and have make your voice heard. So especially locally, these might be great places to visit and get the start the conversation with what yeah, I need to I need to do more research on what these are, but potentially being able to show up and make your voices heard on this issue, saying like, "Hey, we want this to be something y'all run on." Regardless of party, that would be really, really great. It'd be nice to see some partisan bipartisanship here in Texas. That'd be nice.
I can speak on that really quick. So it's called the well, in Iowa, it's called the caucus to convention process, and it is both parties, and it happens in all um what 50 states and 7 territories or whatever it is. But basically, yeah, you start off at the local precinct level, and it goes, you kind of work your way through the steps of having group meetings with, your precinct and then your county and then your legislative district or your congressional district, and then it goes to the state, and then you go to the national level. And all those steps of the way, you're electing people to represent you from your community. And you're also deciding on a platform, and that is presumably maybe where like that link you found, Cannon, came from, because anybody can introduce what is called like a platform resolution at these meetings. And that's something we've done very successfully in Iowa. In Iowa, we managed to get folks from both sides of the aisle and counties and precincts across the state to introduce resolutions against eminent domain. And so now both state party platforms do have language opposing the use of eminent domain for private gain. And I mean, we managed to do it in one cycle. So usually the process goes from like February to June is when it you end the state convention cycle. So I imagine, yeah, it can kind of vary like a little bit on dates just by state, but June is usually the end point because then there's a national convention for both parties around August. Um, I don't know if the national convention actually meets in the off years though. But yeah, essentially, it's one of the tactics we've used in other states, and it's been really successful because then we can take that to all of our elected officials, regardless of party, and just be like, hey, here's what, your Republican constituents are saying, or here's what your Democratic constituents are saying. They want you to vote this way. Live up to your party platform.
That's right. And Emma Allison asks here in the chat, let's come up with some platform resolutions. Emma, can you help us with that? The
You bet I
ones.
can. I already have some written up, so we're ready
There
to
you
go.
go. Yeah, I think that would be great. And that can be the focus of our the next few weeks. The timeline for this is in March. Is that right? Allison, you're saying the ones for Texas are in March?
I think the precinct meetings are in March. Now, I picked up, I don't know if I've voted both ways through my life, so I could probably show up at either the Republican or the Democrat or at both of them.
You actually have to go to the one that you voted for in voted in on the primary.
Thanks, Cannon.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that I think that can be a really important next step as we are organizing this town hall as well as we're talking to the state representatives. We have our policy platform resolutions ready and drafted. And it can help a lot to say, hey, this isn't anything new. Other states have already passed it. That can really help us. So I guess we're liking this direction then. Um, what do we think about the next steps to be first identifying our state representative, rep and senator, and then offline we can meet with Emma about drafting up an email to our state rep asking for a meeting so that we can present these ideas. And we can do that mostly offline. But yeah, how does that sound as a next step? Yeah, okay. And along the way, we're developing this platform resolution idea. With that, um, let's see. With that, Emma has a training for us for the next few minutes about what are some good tips about talking to our state representatives.
Do we want to
Before
hold
we,
that for next time since we are getting close to time?
yeah, I was gonna say that we can do that as well. Um, for quick show of hands, who here has an existing relationship with their state representative? Who has reached out to them? Who's called them, emailed them, and they've responded? Has anyone done that? Is anyone in that position?
I know one of our landowners has, but she's not on the call tonight. Other than that, I haven't heard of anybody being responded
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, we Yeah, not yet. I think that's what we should focus on. We can come up with a packet. Like these are our resolutions, these are our policy platforms. This is the town hall event that we want to invite you to. And if we notice that they're very aligned with us, we invite them. If we notice that they are not aligned, then we don't. But that's part of what we can do. So as a next step, Jay and I can follow up with you, and we can do exactly that. Figure out who your state rep is, um, come up with some resolutions that we can talk to them about, and then set up a meeting. Does that sound good for everyone? Yeah, awesome. And in the meantime, Emma is compiling for us some other resolution platforms that have been successful in other states. Yeah, go for it. Go for it, William. You've got your hand up.
Well, before we close out, I was just wondering if you had any updates on DeLa Express.
No updates. Same thing, same situation. Emma's keeping track of the FERC filings. Emma, do you want to speak more on that?
Just really briefly, I can. Yeah. So they usually file once a month with just a quick update that basically says nothing. They haven't really made any progress in, about a year. I think their last filing was January 27th or so. So I imagine we'll get a filing this week that may have additional information, but I'd be kind of surprised. The one difference from the most recent filing in January compared to the last 12 months is just that they did put some deadlines on information that they were going to provide to FERC, but to me, it just read kind of more as like we're continuing to kick the can down the road, and not anything, really solid or legitimate. So I think we're still kind of in that same space of just wait and see, but it doesn't seem like they're really moving forward. They just don't want to officially announce it?
Emma, do you have any insight into when FERC might force their hand? I talked to a consultant for FERC. It's probably been about 5 months ago. They're very aware it's a stagnant project, And that person indicated that sometimes FERC can like make them declare it inactive. Do you have any ideas on how that might happen?
I think that's one thing we'd like to see happen, and we were hoping that we would get like enough pressure with folks like submitting comments on the FERC docket, asking FERC to do just that. And we did see a handful of comments come in, but I don't think it was maybe enough or enough to really catch FERC's attention to feel that it was an imminent move to be made. But I think, I mean, the longer it drags out without any sort of change, I'm sure they're not happy with it either. But I would, yeah, just encourage folks to continue posting comments on the docket. And I mean, there's no real like limit to how many times you can submit a comment. So, I mean, if that's something you want to wake up every morning to start your day by just complaining to FERC, like you certainly can.
Yeah, I think they've lost people that retired because they could. And I think they're probably trying to, as career civil servants, to protect their jobs. So there's probably not a real move for them to stir the pot too much in our current
Mhm.
environment.
Yep, that makes sense to me. I think, and that's where I think the public pressure angle comes into it. And I think, we talked a lot about the whole aspect of like condemnation blight and how this is, to this company, it's just kicking the can down the road, but it has real impacts on people's lives. And we need to, I don't know the uh, politically correct way of saying this, but, make your move, right? Or quit wasting people's time.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Feedback? We did record. We do have those resources of the step-by-step um, guide on how to submit for comments. Um, we can send it once again so that in case anyone has any questions about that, I'm gonna do it right now, actually, here in the chat. So just to confirm, can everyone click on that link to see if you're able to access it? Yeah. William, you're able to as well? You've got that
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. But yeah, like Emma said, there's no limit to how many you can give. Let's keep that pressure going as well as the bigger picture of the statewide plan. Cool.
When's our next meeting?
Excellent point. Next meeting is March 24th. Tuesday, March 24th, same time. We can remember because this one was on the 24th as well. Um, how does that sound for everyone? Tuesday, March 24th. And like I said, between now and then, we'll connect with everyone individually about beginning that relationship with the state rep.
Awesome. Cool. If I can help with anything in the meantime, folks should feel free to reach out. Otherwise,
Yeah. To close off, to conclude, then let's just go around the room with any reaction word, how we're feeling, and leaving this meeting. I am leaving this meeting feeling very in solidarity, statewide solidarity. That's my word. And one word, how we're leaving this meeting, I'll pass it to Cannon.
I have to say that I'm leaving this meeting feeling, I guess, some clarity of next steps. There's direct things we can do in the near and medium future that we can all hopefully push, our needs forward and put them in the public awareness.
Excellent. How about you, Suzanne? What's your feeling word?
Sorry. Feeling like, even if it's little steps, it's still valuable. Every little bit helps. And so keep up the pressure, keep the flow of information and good support. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. How about you, Andy?
Uh, I think we're making small steps forward. I see it beginning to get organized, coming up with a plan, and I started to say optimistic, but that might be a little bold yet. So baby steps right now, still taking small steps, but making
There you go.
progress.
Absolutely. We have to earn that optimism. What about you, Allison? Allison, can you hear us? And your feeling word as we conclude? She hopped off. But what about you, Jay and Armando, if you want to say your feeling word?
Yeah, I'm feeling excited. It's nice to see, or it's awesome to see Armando out in far West Texas connecting to folks all around the state. So yeah, awesome to see things coming together.
I'm feeling supported. I'm looking forward to what's to come. It's always a new adventure. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Excellent. How about you, Howard?
Well, it's good to know that other people around the state are all fighting the same fight, that
That's
we're
right.
working together.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. William, what's your feeling word?
Well, I think the meeting's productive, certainly given some ideas on how to move forward. So I think that's a big step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Emma, to round us off?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm really bad at these icebreaker sort of things, and the only word that is going through my mind right now is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I cannot come up with any other descriptive word. So that's where we're at.
There you go. Excellent word to conclude this meeting. We'll stay at it. We'll reach out to you all one to one, and we'll see you in March 24th, 6 Central. Thanks, y'all.
Good night, y'all.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.